Hello, my dear friends. You are standing at the edge of a vast, rolling sea of green, so vibrant it almost hurts to look at. This is the promise of the Usambara Mountains in German East Africa, late in the 19th century, a highland paradise, a cool and misty escape from the sweltering coast. The air smells of damp earth, night-blooming jasmine, and the promise of a new life. You were told this was a modern marvel, a coffee plantation bringing order and prosperity to the wilderness. Honestly, given the choice between this and your cubicle, you'd probably pick this for about 10 minutes, before you realize there's no Wi-Fi and you'd almost certainly perish from a mild infection. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support, as always, is deeply appreciated. Now, nestle into your pillows. Let your mind drift away from the glow of your screen and picture this scene. Feel the cool mountain air on your skin. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've been walking for what feels like days, ascending from the humid plains into these temperate, cloud-draped highlands. The journey itself was a kind of illusion. Every European account you've heard, every report back to the German colonial society, describes this region as a kind of Eden. They use words like lush, fertile, and untouched. And from a distance, it holds up. You see hillsides carved into neat terraces, shimmering with banana leaves and the deep, glossy green of coffee shrubs. It looks organized, clean, a testament to the German obsession with order. This is the glamorous image, the one they sell to investors back in Hamburg and Berlin. It's a picture of a tamed, productive wilderness, a verdant jewel in the Kaiser's colonial crown. You expect to find a place of pristine agriculture, where nature has been gently bent to the will of progress. But as you walk through the main gate, two simple wooden posts, the illusion begins to dissolve. Not with a crash, but with a quiet, creeping sense of wrongness. The first thing you notice isn't the sight, but the smell. It's not the fragrant aroma of roasting coffee you might find in a Viennese cafe. No, this is something else entirely. It's a sharp, vaguely fruity, yet acidic smell of fermentation. It's the smell of decay, but a productive decay. It hangs in the air, thick and inescapable. And then, your eyes adjust to the reality of the place, and you see the color. The color is brown. Not the rich, dark brown of fertile soil or the comforting brown of polished wood. It's a flat, dull, pervasive reddish-brown stain. It's as if the entire world here has been rinsed in weak coffee and left to dry in the sun. The wooden planks of the processing sheds are stained with it. The massive drying tables, wide as threshing floors, are stained. The burlap sacks, piled in, their hundreds, are not their natural beige but are dyed this uniform, monotonous brown. Even the path you walk on, a track of beaten earth, seems to have this color infused into its very particles. It's everywhere. And then, you see the people. You see the men, the women, the older children, all moving with a slow, rhythmic gait that speaks of long hours and deep fatigue. This is the shocking reality that the postcards home leave out. Their clothes, simple cotton garments that might have once been white or off-white, are now irrevocably dyed that same dull, brownish ochre. But it's their skin that truly stops you. Their hands and their feet are the darkest of all. From the tips of their fingers to their wrists, their skin is coated in a deep, almost black-brown patina, as if they were wearing dark gloves. Their feet, bare on the stained earth, are colored to the ankle. It's not dirt. You can tell. Dirt is uneven, caked in some places, sparse in others. This is a dye. A deep, indelible stain that has become a second skin. You're looking at the central, unspoken truth of this entire enterprise. This is what the glamorous illusion of a green paradise is built upon, the stain. The why of it all is rooted in the very nature of the coffee bean. Before it is the hard, roasted kernel we know, it is the seed of a fruiter coffee cherry. Processing these cherries, separating the valuable bean from the worthless pulp, is a wet, messy, sticky business. The fruit's skin and mucilage are full of sugars and pigments that, when exposed to air and water, create a powerful, lasting dye. The water used to wash the beans, the fermenting pulp, the the juice crushed from the cherries, it all carries the staining agent. And in the rigid hierarchy of the colonial plantation, this stain becomes the uniform. The German plantation owner, the Bwana, wears crisp, immaculate white linen. His clean hands, which might only touch a pen or a polished rifle, are a symbol of his authority. Yes. Whiteness is not just about race. It's about a literal, visible lack of stain. To be clean is to be in power. But for you, a new laborer arriving on the plantation, this stain is your destiny. It is the visible mark of your caste. It says you are a worker, that your hands are for pulping and sorting and hauling, not for signing documents. It's a brand, applied daily, that can't be washed off. It tells everyone at a single glance exactly where you belong in this meticulously ordered world. This entire green paradise is, in truth, a world painted brown, and you've just arrived to receive your first coat. It all begins with the cherry, a small, deceptively beautiful fruit that promises so much, but will soon leave its own irremovable mark upon you. Your first real assignment is to join the pickers. You're led away from the central processing area, up a terraced path that winds into the coffee groves themselves. Here, the air is cooler, shaded by the broad leaves of banana trees planted intermittently between the coffee shrubs. For a moment, the illusion of paradise returns. The scene is beautiful, serene even. The coffee shrubs are arranged in neat rows, their leaves are glossy, dark green. And nestled among these leaves, clustered along the branches, are the coffee cherries. This is the glamorous illusion, the jewel at the heart of the enterprise. They are magnificent. The ripe ones are a deep, vibrant crimson, the colour of rubis or pomegranates. They gleam with a waxy sheen in the dappled sunlight, looking plump and perfect. The overseer, a man whose own hands bear the faint, faded memory of this stain, demonstrates. He plucks a single cherry and holds it in his palm. It looks precious, a small, perfect fruit. This is the story sold to the world. Coffee is a gift from the earth, harvested by hand, each cherry selected with care. It's an image of artisanal craft, of a partnership with nature. The value, you are told, is immense. Each one of these little red jewels is a tiny package of potential profit, the raw material for a luxury consumed thousands of miles away by people you will never meet, in cities you can barely imagine. You are handed a large woven basket, and the simple instruction is to pick only the red ones. Leave the green. Leave the yellow. Only the perfect, ruby red cherries. You reach out and pluck your first one. It comes away from the branch with a soft, satisfying little pop. It feels smooth and firm in your hand, cool to the touch. You pick another, and another. For the first few minutes, it feels almost pleasant, a gentle, repetitive task in a beautiful setting. The basket begins to fill, a treasure trove of crimson gems. You can understand, in this moment, how someone could write a poem about this. But then, the shocking reality of the work begins to set in. You crush one by accident. A slick, clear, and slightly sticky liquid coats your fingers, along with a smear of reddish pulp. It smells sweet, almost like a grape. You wipe it on the rough fabric of your trousers and continue working. But the juice is everywhere. As your basket gets heavier, the cherries at the bottom are inevitably crushed by the weight of those on top. The sweet, fermenting liquid begins to pool at the bottom. Your hands are no longer just touching smooth, dry cherries, they are now plunged into this sticky mash every time you add more. The pulp, a thin layer of fruit clinging to the two beans inside, gets under your fingernails. It's gritty and slimy at the same time. The beautiful, clean act of picking has transformed, within an hour, into a messy, sticky ordeal. And then, you notice the change. The clear, sweet-smelling juice on your skin is oxidizing. As it reacts with the air and the oils on your hands, it begins to change color. The initial reddish smear darkens to a brownish burgundy, and then, over the course of the afternoon, it deepens to a dark, tar-like brown, almost black. You try to rub it off, but it's no use. It doesn't sit on top of your skin. It sinks into it. It feels as if the pigment is bonding with you, becoming part of you. The skin on your hands feels tight, almost like it's been lightly tanned. You look at the hands of the veteran pickers around you. There's a uniformly black-brown to the wrist, the lines on their palms etched in an even darker shade. This isn't dirt. This is a chemical transformation. The why of this process is brutally simple. From the plantation owner's perspective, the cherry's pulp and skin are waste products. They are the messy, inconvenient wrapping around the valuable part, the bean, or as it's more accurately called, the seed. The entire goal of the operation is to separate this valuable, clean seed from its worthless, messy fruit. And you, the laborer, are part of that separation process. Your body is a tool, no different from the woven basket or the hoe. If the tool gets stained in the process of production, what does it matter? The stain is a mark of the tool's function. It is a physical manifestation of the division of labor. The messy, organic, natural part of the process, the pulping, the fermenting, the staining, is handled by black hands. The final, clean, refined product, the polished bean ready for export, is for white consumption. The stain on your skin is the price of their cleanliness. It is a constant, visible reminder that you are on the side of the pulp, the earth, the raw material. You are part of the process that is meant to be hidden, washed away before the product reaches the pristine shelves of a European grocer. The sun begins to set, and the day's picking is done. You look down at your hands. They no longer look like your own. They are the hands of a coffee worker. The transformation has begun. The beautiful red ruby has revealed its true nature, not a gem, but a source of a stubborn, indelible ink. This mark on your hands is just the first, most intimate stain. Soon, this pervasive identity will spread, covering not just your skin, but the very clothes you wear, creating a uniform you can never take off. The next morning, you are roused before the sun has even thought about climbing over the mountains. In the dim, pre-dawn light, you are issued your work clothes. The illusion, as presented by the logic of the plantation, is one of practicality and even a strange kind of corporate identity. You are given a single, loose-fitting garment made of a coarse, unbleached cotton known as calico. It's a simple tunic, durable and easy to work in. In the German way of thinking, this is efficient. It's a uniform of sorts, meant to clothe the workforce cheaply and effectively. It's presented as a gift, a provision from the benevolent master, freeing you from the worry of ruining your own clothes. On your first day, fresh from the supply store, it is stiff and a pale, creamy off-white. It looks clean, functional, almost respectable. It represents a blank slate. You put it on. It smells of starch and the dry, dusty scent of bulk milled cotton. For a moment, you feel like a new person, officially part of this massive enterprise. You are no longer just a newcomer, you are a worker, clad in the designated attire. You look around at the others, some new like you, others in garments that have seen many months of labor. This simple piece of cloth is meant to be your identity here. But the shocking reality dawns on you by mid-morning. This clean, blank slate is a lie. It is a canvas, and the work itself is the paint. As you haul your first heavy basket of coffee cherries from the grove to the pulping shed, the strap digs into your shoulder. The friction and the weight crush the cherries, and a trickle of that familiar sticky juice seeps through the woven fibers of the basket and onto the shoulder of your new tunic. It starts as a small, damp, pinkish spot. You barely notice it. Then, as you work the pulping machine, a hand-cranked grinder that separates the bean from the fruit, you are spattered. A fine spray of pulp and juice lands on your chest and arms. By lunchtime, your pristine tunic is dotted with dozens of these small, weeping spots. Over the next few days, the transformation accelerates. You kneel in the damp earth to sort beans on the drying pechos, and the reddish-brown mud cakes the knees of your garment. You brush against the wet, fermenting piles of pulp, and a long, dark smear appears on your side. Sweat pours down your back, mixing with the dust and the coffee juice, creating a grimy, brown-tide mark that circles your torso. The original off-white color vanishes, piece by piece, day by day. It's not a single event, but a slow, creeping accumulation of stains. Each task leaves its signature. A splash from the washing channels. A smudge from a greasy piece of machinery. A smear of red earth. This garment becomes your story, a map of your labor. It is your true uniform, not the clean one you were given, but the one you create. And unlike a uniform of rank or honor, this one can never be fully washed clean. Water is too precious, and soap is a luxury you do not have. The coffee stain, in particular, sets into the cotton fibers with a chemical permanence. It doesn't fade, it only darkens and accumulates, layered with new stains each day. The why behind this is a masterclass in colonial psychology and economic pragmatism. For the plantation owner, providing this single calico garment is a shrewd investment. It fulfills a basic need, creating a dependent workforce that doesn't have to worry about clothing. But more importantly, it visually categorizes his laborers. The progressive staining is not a flaw. It's a feature. It reinforces the hierarchy. The Bwana and his European staff remain in their crisp, washable linens, separated by a vast gulf of cleanliness. The stained garment becomes a visual shorthand for the worker's status. It's a non-verbal way of saying, your body and your life are enmeshed in the dirtiest parts of this process. Furthermore, it's a tool of social control. A worker in a heavily stained tunic is easily identifiable. There is no blending in, no escaping your role. If you were to run away, your very clothes would betray you. They mark you as property of the plantation as surely as a brand on livestock. The clean, off-white calico was an illusion of a fresh start. The reality is that it was simply a fresh surface on which to record your subjugation. It's a uniform that you don't just wear, but one that you author, stroke by stroke, with your own sweat and toil. The fabric doesn't just cover your body, it absorbs your labor, becoming a heavy, stained chronicle of your days. Looking at your tunic now, after only a week, you see it's no longer a piece of clothing. It's a landscape of your life here. And as you watch the precious, clean water being sluiced over the coffee beans to wash them for their long journey, you begin to understand the brutal economy of cleanliness on this plantation, and who is deemed worthy of it. You follow the flow of the coffee beans, and you find that their journey is a baptism. After being pulped, the beans, still coated in a sticky layer of sugary mucilage, are funneled into large concrete vats or long, sloping channels, and here the great cleansing begins. The torrent of water, diverted from a mountain stream high above the plantation, is unleashed. The glamorous illusion is one of purity and scientific progress. You see the water gushing in, clear and cool, a powerful force washing over the beans. It's a loud, dramatic process. The sound of thousands of gallons of rushing water fills the air, a symbol of the plantation's modernity and its mastery over the natural environment. This is the washing station. It's a feat of engineering, with aqueducts, sluice gates and fermentation tanks all designed for one purpose, to wash the coffee beans until they are immaculately clean. The water swirls and churns, lifting away the last remnants of the sweet, sticky fruit. The beans are agitated, scrubbed by the current, their surfaces becoming smooth and pale. They are transformed from a sticky, organic mess into a clean, uniform commodity. The process can take 24 hours or more, with the water being changed multiple times. It is a purification ritual. The water carries away the stain, the pulp, the stickiness, everything that connects the bean to the earth, to the fruit, to your hands. It is a spectacle of cleansing, a testament to the ideal of a perfect, unblemished final product. The amount of water used is staggering, a veritable river diverted for the sole purpose of polishing these little seeds. When the washing is done, the wastewater is flushed out, a thick, brownish, foul-smelling slurry that is channeled away from the pristine processing area. The beans, now pale and slick, are ready for the drying patios. They have been redeemed by water. Then, at the end of your long, grueling day, it is your turn. The work horn sounds and you trudge back towards the workers' quarters, your body aching, your skin tight with dried sweat and sticky with that ever-present coffee juice. Your tunic is a map of grime. The dust of the drying patios has turned to a fine mud in the creases of your elbows and knees. Your hands are still black-brown with the indelible stain of the cherries. You crave water. You dream of the feeling of cool, clean water washing away the filth, soothing your skin, making you feel human again. This is the shocking reality. You arrive at the workers' designated washing area. It is not a gushing channel. It is not a torrent of mountain water. It is a single, large wooden trough, fed by a slow, miserly trickle from a pipe. The water that fills it is what's left over, the dregs of the system. A long line of men and women are already there, waiting patiently. By the time you get your turn, the water in the trough is no longer clear. It is a murky, grey-brown soup, clouded with the dirt, sweat, and stains of the 20 people who have washed before you. You are allotted one gourd full. That is your ration. One scoop of this tepid, cloudy water to wash your hands, your face, your feet. You dip your hands in, and the water does little to touch the deep-set coffee stain. It might wash away the surface dust, but the dark dye remains, a permanent part of you. You splash your face, the water feeling gritty against your skin. You look at your reflection in the murky trough and see a stranger, a face smudged with exhaustion. There is no soap. Soap is for the white staff. There are no towels. You dry in the cool evening air. The cleansing you desperately need is a fantasy. You leave the trough feeling only marginally less dirty than when you arrived. You are stained, and you will remain stained. The why of this stark contrast is the most brutal logic of all, the logic of commodity value. In the world of the plantation, the coffee bean is the asset. It is the entire reason for this place's existence. Its cleanliness is directly tied to its market price. A clean, well-processed bean fetches a premium in Europe. A poorly washed bean, one that carries the off flavors of fermentation or dirt, is worth less. Therefore, from a purely economic standpoint, lavishing a river's worth of water on the beans is a sound investment. It directly increases profit. You, the laborer, are on the other side of the ledger. You are a cost. Your health and comfort are expenses to be minimized. Providing you with ample clean water would require more infrastructure, more complex plumbing, and would divert a valuable resource water away from the profit-generating product, the coffee. The single trough of murky water is the calculated, precise amount of cleanliness deemed necessary to keep you functional enough to work the next day without succumbing to disease too quickly. Your desire to be clean is an externality, an irrelevant personal feeling in a system focused solely on the purity of the bean. The plantation's immense hydraulic power is reserved for the product. The workforce gets the runoff. You are dirtier so the coffee can be cleaner. It's a zero-sum game, and you now know, with absolute certainty, which side you're on. The clean, crisp linen of the plantation master is not just a choice of fabric, it's a privilege bought with your thirst and your grime. Twice a day, like a celestial event, the Bwana makes his rounds. The plantation owner lets call him her schmidt is a study in deliberate, theatrical contrast. His appearance is the ultimate glamorous illusion of colonial power, an image meticulously crafted to project an aura of effortless superiority. He emerges from his veranda, a wide, shaded space furnished with wicker chairs and potted ferns, looking as if he has just stepped out of a European haberdashery. He wears a suit of brilliant white linen. In the tropical heat and ever-present dust, maintaining such a garment is a feat in itself, requiring a dedicated team of household staff. His pith helmet is a spotless white, his leather boots are polished to a high gleam, reflecting the sun. But the most potent symbol of his status is his hands. They are immaculate. When he points, gesturing towards a section of the drying patios that needs attention, his fingers are pale and clean. When he holds a ledger, consulting figures with his overseer, his hands are unstained. He might occasionally carry a walking stick or a riding crop, but his palms never touch the raw materials of his own wealth. He is a phantom moving through his own machine, observing and directing but never engaging. He is the ghost of profit, pure and unsullied. His very presence is a performance, designed to awe and intimidate. He is the human embodiment of the clean, final product, a man as refined and removed from the dirt of his origins as the coffee served in a porcelain cup back in Germany. You and the other workers fall silent as he approaches. Avert your eyes, not just out of a conditioned sense of deference, but because the sheer, stark whiteness of his clothes is almost painful to look at. It is a colour that doesn't belong here, a colour that has no business existing in this world of brown earth and brown stains. It is the colour of a world you cannot access. The shocking reality lies in the small, almost invisible interactions. Herr Schmidt will sometimes stop to inspect the work. He might walk over to the drying beans, spread out on the vast tables. He will not touch them. Instead, he will use the tip of his polished boot or his walking stick to nudge a small pile of them, checking their dryness. Then, he might approach the pulping machine. He'll watch the workers crank the heavy iron wheel, their bodies slick with sweat, their hands and arms covered in the dark mash of fruit. He watches with a detached, scientific curiosity, as if observing a particularly interesting species of insect. He never gets close enough to be spattered. The most telling moment comes when he needs to communicate something directly to a worker. He will not tap you on the shoulder. He will not shake your hand. He will speak to his overseer, who then relays the message. But if he must get your attention himself, he will use his walking stick to lightly tap the ground in front of you. The message is clear. Direct physical contact is impossible. There is a sanitary cordon around his body that cannot be breached. Your stained skin, your soiled tunic, your very presence is a form of contamination. You are the raw, dirty process. He is the finished, clean result. The space between his clean hand and your stained one is the entire social and economic distance of the colonial world. The why behind this elaborate performance is twofold. First, it is about the preservation of prestige and authority. In the colonial mindset, familiarity breeds contempt. To maintain the rigid hierarchy, the ruler must be seen as fundamentally different from the ruled. By remaining physically pure, Herskmit reinforces the idea that he is of a different order, a higher type of human. His cleanliness is a visual metaphor for his supposed moral and intellectual superiority. If he were to get his hands dirty, if he were to allow the stain of labor to touch him, it would undermine the entire ideology that justifies his rule. He rules because he is clean in mind, body and race. Second, it is rooted in the nascent germ theory and the more pervasive, older ideas of miasma and contamination that were prevalent at the time. To the European mind, the tropics were a place of disease and decay. Dirt was not just unsightly, it was dangerous, a potential source of fever and sickness. Your stained body was not just a symbol of your low status, it was a potential vector of disease. Herskmit's obsessive cleanliness wasn't just about snobbery, it was also a performance of self-preservation, a ritual to ward off the perceived dangers of the African environment and its people. He keeps his distance not just to maintain his authority, but out of a deep-seated fear of being polluted, of being brought down and consumed by the very world he is exploiting. His white suit is his armor. His clean hands are his scepter. Every polished boot step, every flick of his walking stick, is a calculated gesture in a long, silent play about power. He sells a fantasy of clean profit to the world, and he embodies that fantasy in his own person, a walking mirage of purity in a world defined by the stain he creates, but will never, ever touch. And as he turns, his white back retreating towards the sanctuary of his veranda, you are left in the brown dust, the contrast burning in your mind, feeling the inescapable truth of the rhythm that governs this place, a rhythm that grinds you down as surely as it grinds the coffee. As the weeks bleed into one another, you become attuned to the plantation's pulse. It's not a pulse you feel, but one you hear. It's the plantation's anthem, its heartbeat, and it stains the silence of your life just as surely as the coffee stains your skin. The glamorous illusion of this place, especially from a distance, is one of pastoral quiet. The Usambara Mountains are meant to be a place of serene nature. You imagine the gentle rustle of leaves, the chirping of exotic birds, the soft hum of insects. You think of agriculture as a quiet partnership with the earth, a silent, steady process of growth and harvest. The advertisements and colonial reports would have you believe this is a tranquil retreat, where the loudest sound is the whisper of the wind through the coffee groves. This auditory fantasy is shattered within your first few hours and is obliterated forever within a day. The plantation is not quiet. It is a factory without walls, and it is a soundtrack of relentless, monotonous, soul-grinding noise. The most dominant sound, the one that becomes the bass note for your entire existence, is the sound of processing coffee. It's a symphony of abrasion. There is the wet, squelching crunch of the hand-cranked pulpers, a sound that goes on for 10 hours a day during the harvest season. It's a sound of constant, forceful separation. Then there is the rhythmic, shuffling scrape of the beans being raked across the vast drying patios. Workers use large wooden rakes, almost like snow shovels, to turn the beans, ensuring they dry evenly. It's a constant sha-sha-sha, a dry, sibilant whisper that is 100 times louder and more grating than the wind. But the most pervasive and maddening sound is the pounding. Once the beans are dried, their final layer, a brittle parchment-like skin, must be removed. This is done by hand, in large wooden mortars with heavy wooden pestles. All day long, Groups of workers, usually women, stand in circles, pounding the dried beans. It's not a random noise. It establishes a rhythm. Thump, 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 thump. It's a communal, synchronized beat, a work song without music. This deep, percussive sound travels for miles. It's the first thing you hear when you wake in the thin, pre-dawn air, and it's the last sound you hear before you fall into an exhausted sleep. This is the shocking reality. The silence of your own mind is invaded and colonized by this rhythm. It becomes the soundtrack to your thoughts, the metronome for your own heartbeat. You find yourself chewing your meager evening meal in time with the distant pounding. You walk in step with it. And in the dead of night, when the work has finally stopped, you still hear it. It's a phantom noise, an acoustic stain etched into your brain. The silence rings with the echo of the pestles. You lie on your thin straw mat, and the ghost thump vibrates through the hard-packed earth into your bones. It's a sound that signifies production, profit, and your own unending labor. It's the opposite of peace. It's the sound of being slowly ground down. Why for this acoustic invasion is the logic of pre-industrial, yet highly organized, manual labor. Usambara's plantation is a machine, and its moving parts are human bodies. Rhythmic, synchronized work is efficient. The steady beat of the pestles isn't just a byproduct of the work, it's a tool of it. The rhythm sets a pace. It prevents slacking. A worker who falls out of rhythm is immediately noticeable. The sound is a form of auditory surveillance, a way for the overseers to monitor the pace of work without having to watch every single person. It creates a collective momentum that is hard for an individual to resist. You are swept up in the beat, your own body becoming a cog in the machine, your energy harnessed to the collective pulse. Furthermore, this constant noise serves to drown out other things. It drowns out conversation. It drowns out the sounds of nature. It drowns out thinking. It's hard to formulate a complex thought, to have a private mental life, when your brain is being perpetually hammered by this external rhythm. It's a form of sensory deprivation, where one sense hearing is so overloaded with a single repetitive stimulus that it dulls the others and smothers internal life. The pastoral quiet of the colonial fantasy is a lie not just because it's noisy, but because the noise is a weapon. It's an instrument of control, ensuring that the workforce is too sonically battered to do much more than follow the beat. The sound of the plantation is the sound of wealth being generated, and the cost of that sound is the quiet sanctity of your own mind. This incessant rhythm, this pounding that becomes the very fabric of your days, starts to feel like a physical ailment. It's a headache you can't get rid of, a fever in your ears. You begin to realize that the work here doesn't just stain your hands and your clothes, it inflicts a sickness that settles deep within your body. The plantation is sold to the world, and to its workers, as a bastion of health. This is a core part of the glamorous illusion. The Usambara highlands are promoted by the German colonial administration as a natural sanatorium. Unlike the fever-ridden coast, the mountain air is cool and crisp, free from the malaria-carrying mosquitoes of the lowlands. The work is agricultural, outdoors, under the sun and in the fresh air. It's presented as a wholesome, natural existence. You are told you are lucky to be here, in this healthy environment, far from the squalor and disease of the crowded coastal towns. The plantation itself, with its neat rows and orderly processing stations, looks clean and organized, the very picture of a healthy, productive enterprise. Usambara boasts in his letters home about the low incidence of tropical fever among his staff, framing his plantation as a triumph of German hygiene and environmental superiority. You want to believe it. In the beginning, the cool air does feel good. The physical labor, while hard, feels like it could make you strong. But the shocking reality is a landscape of hidden sicknesses, a catalogue of ailments that are a direct result of the work itself. This supposedly healthy environment is, in fact, designed to slowly break down your body. The stains are not just on your skin, but inside you, marking you with a host of chronic conditions that are never spoken of. First, there are your hands and feet. Remember the dark, indelible stain from the coffee cherries? It's not just a dye. The constant exposure to the acidic, fermenting pulp leads to a condition the workers call kikonocha kahoa coffee hand. Your skin becomes cracked and raw under the stain. The pulp gets into these small fissures, causing painful, low-grade infections that never fully heal. Your fingernails become brittle, splitting and lifting from the nail beds. At night, your hands throb with a dull, persistent ache. Your feet, constantly bare on the damp, often contaminated ground of the washing stations and fermenting pits, suffer a similar fate. Small cuts from sharp stones or stray bits of wood become festering sores. Then, there is your back. The work of picking requires you to be stooped over for hours, reaching into the shrubs, hauling the heavy, 60-kilogram sacks of wet cherries from the groves to the pulping stations is a brutal, back-straining task. There are no wheelbarrows, no mechanical aids. There is only your spine. Within a few months, a permanent, deep ache settles into your lower back. It's a pain that is worst in the morning, making the simple act of standing up a struggle. You see it in the older workers, in the way they walk, permanently bent, as if carrying a phantom sack of coffee on their shoulders. And then, there is your breath. The final stages of coffee processing, hulling the dried beans and sorting them, create a fine, pervasive dust. It's a mixture of dried vegetable matter, mold spores, and earth. You spend hours in poorly ventilated sheds, breathing this in. It coats your throat and lungs. A dry, hacking cough becomes your constant companion. The workers call it the dust cough. It's not seen as a sickness, just a normal part of the job. You spit, and a brownish phlegm comes up. The stain of the coffee is now literally inside your body, a constant irritation in your respiratory tract. The why for this disconnect between the illusion of health and the reality of sickness is the cold, hard logic of expendability. The Herstmit and the colonial enterprise, your body is a short-term resource, not a long-term investment. The goal is to extract the maximum amount of labor from you in the shortest possible time, at the lowest possible cost. Providing proper protective gear, gloves, boots, respiratory masks would be an added expense. Designing the work to be ergonomically safe would slow down production. Acknowledging these work-related ailments as the plantation's responsibility would create a duty of care, a financial and moral obligation. It is far easier and more profitable to deny that the sickness exists, or to frame it as a natural consequence of a laborer's life, or even as a sign of the laborer's own weakness. The healthy mountain air narrative is a powerful piece of propaganda. It allows the owner to externalize the blame. If you get sick, it's not because the work is inherently damaging, it's because you are not robust enough, or you were secretly unwell to begin with. The plantation remains healthy. It is the individual worker's body that fails. This worldview keeps the workforce compliant and disposable. When a worker is too broken down by the back pain, the hand rot, or the lung dust to be productive, they can be dismissed and replaced. There is always a fresh supply of new bodies from the villages below, ready to believe the illusion of the healthy mountain paradise. The neat, clean lines of the plantation's account books reflect this logic perfectly, hiding the messy, painful reality of the human cost. At the end of each month, you witness a solemn ritual. Herskmit sits at a sturdy wooden table on his shaded veranda, a large, leather-bound ledger open before him. This ledger is the plantation's sacred text, the ultimate source of truth in this world. The glamorous illusion it presents is one of impeccable order, fairness, and transparency. The book itself is a thing of beauty. Its lines are perfectly ruled. Its columns are neatly drawn. Herskmit uses a fountain pen with black ink, and his handwriting is a model of precise, Germanic calligraphy. Everything is accounted for. The amount of coffee harvested, the wages owed, the deductions for food and lodging. It all looks so clean, so rational, so objective. It's the very picture of modern, scientific management. When it's your turn, you are called forward. The overseer stands beside Herskmit, translating. The Bwana points a clean, unstained finger at a line in the book. He announces the number of days you have worked, and the wage you have earned. It is a small sum, but it sounds official, concrete. Then, he moves his finger to the next column. He reads out the deductions, a charge for the maize flour that is your daily food, a fee for your spot on the floor of the barracks, a deduction for the calico tunic you were issued. The numbers are subtracted, one by one, with mathematical certainty. At the end, he announces the final amount due to you. It is often a pittance, sometimes nothing at all. He makes a neat little mark next to your name, closes the book, and you are dismissed. The process feels final, indisputable. The ledger, with its clean lines and neat figures, has spoken. The shocking reality is that this ledger is not a tool of accounting, it is a weapon of control. It is a work of fiction, a carefully constructed narrative of debt that ensures you can never leave. The numbers that seem so objective are, in fact, entirely arbitrary. You have no way of verifying them. You cannot read or write. Have no calendar to track your own days worked. You are forced to accept the plantation's record as fact. The price of your food ration. It changes at the whim of the owner. One month the maize flour is cheap, the next it is expensive, especially if the harvest was good and he feels the workers are getting ahead. You begin to notice the pattern. No matter how hard you work, you never seem to clear your debt. There is always a new charge, a new fee. Did a tool break? The cost is divided among the workers. Was a sack of coffee lost or damaged? The value is deducted from your collective wages. You are trapped in a system of manufactured debt. You came here to earn money to take back to your village, perhaps to pay a tax or buy a cow. But now, the ledger says you owe the plantation. To leave would be to default on your debt, which is a criminal offence in the eyes of the colonial authorities. The ledger has transformed you from a free labourer into a bonded one. This is the dirty secret. Behind the clean columns, the math is rigged. The pristine bookkeeping is a facade for a system of debt peonage, a form of modern-day serfdom. The stain of this injustice is invisible, hidden within the elegant calligraphy. It's a stain on your future, a mark of indenture that is far more binding than the coffee stain on your hands. The physical stain marks you as a labourer, this invisible, numerical stain marks you as a prisoner. The why for this system is the fundamental labour problem of the colonial economy. Plantations like this require a massive, stable and cheap workforce, especially during the harvest season. But wage labour was a new concept for many of the local peoples, like the Shamba and Pear. Their societies were not based on cash economies. Given the choice, many would prefer to work their own small farms, tend their own crops and participate in their own local systems of exchange. They would not willingly subject themselves to this back-breaking, monotonous toil for meagre pay. Coercion was therefore essential. The colonial government helped by imposing taxes like a hut tax that could only be paid in official currency, forcing men to seek wage labour. But the plantation owners perfected the system. By creating a cycle of debt, they could legally bind their workers to the plantation. The ledger was the perfect tool for this. It carried the weight and authority of European law and bureaucracy. To a German colonial official, the ledger was proof of a fair contract. How could a meticulously kept book lie? The system preyed on the illiteracy of the workforce, using the very tools of civilization, writing, arithmetic, accounting to enforce a brutal and exploitable system. The clean, rational lines of the ledger served to launder a dirty reality, transforming coercion into a simple, inescapable mathematical equation. Your life is now a number in a book, and the sum is always in the master's favour. You are bound not by chains, but by a column of numbers, a far more sophisticated and damning form of bondage. And you start to wonder about the old ways, the beliefs that governed this land before the ledgers arrived, beliefs that are now suppressed but have not been entirely erased. Before the arrival of the Germans, the Shamba kings ruled these mountains. Their power was not recorded in ledgers, but woven into the very fabric of the land. This is the glamorous illusion of the past, a world of deep, spiritual connection to the earth. In this older worldview, the mountains were not just soil and rock, they were sacred. Certain groves were inhabited by ancestral spirits, specific peaks were places of power, and the rain that fed the crops was a gift bestowed by a properly honoured king who could intercede with the gods. The health of the land and the health of the people were one and the same. The chief's legitimacy came from his ability to ensure fertility, both of the soil and of his people. This was a world imbued with meaning, where every stream, every ancient tree, had a story and a spiritual purpose. It was a worldview that demanded respect for the land, because to dishonour the land was to invite famine, drought, and disaster. The German colonial project, with its coffee plantations and its obsession with scientific agriculture, sought to erase this worldview entirely. Herskmidt sees the land as a resource, a blank slate on which to impose a more rational, profitable order. To him, the sacred grove is just a patch of unproductive, overgrown forest that needs to be cleared for more coffee shrubs. The stream is not a living entity, but a source of hydraulic power for his washing channels. The local beliefs are dismissed as primitive superstition, the nonsensical ramblings of an uncivilized people. The new order is one of straight lines, property deeds, and yield per hectare calculations. The old gods have been officially evicted, replaced by the new, more powerful gods of profit and progress. The spiritual landscape has been bulldozed, paved over with the logic of the plantation. But this is where the shocking reality emerges. The old ways have not been erased. They have simply gone underground. They persist as a kind of spiritual stain, a watermark of belief that the new system, for all its power, cannot entirely wash away. You see it in the small, secret gestures of the other workers. You see a woman, on her way to the fields, pause at a large, ancient-looking tree that was somehow spared the axe. She murmurs something too quiet for you to hear and leaves a small offering, a few grains of maize, a single, pretty flower. It's a tiny, almost invisible act, but it's an act of profound defiance. She is still honoring the spirit of the place, right under the nose of the new regime. You learn from the whispers in the barracks at night. The persistent cough that plagues the workers. The Bwana calls it dust irritation. But the older workers know it is the displeasure of the ancestors whose graves were disturbed when the fields were cleared. The strange rot-like ailments that affect the coffee plants in certain sections of the plantation. Erskmit blames a fungus and writes letters to agronomists in Germany. The workers know better. That section of land was once a powerful ritual site, and the earth is resisting its desecration. These beliefs provide an alternative explanation for the suffering and misfortune on the plantation. It is not just random chance or German exploitation. It is a spiritual imbalance. The land itself is sick, and its sickness is visited upon both the people and the crop. The why for the persistence of these beliefs is that they provide a framework of meaning and resistance in a world that has been stripped of it. The German system is dehumanizing. It reduces people to units of labor and land to a unit of production. It offers no spiritual comfort, no explanation for suffering beyond cold, hard economics. The old beliefs, however, give the workers a sense of agency and a hidden knowledge. They understand the land in a way the Bwana never will. They know its secrets, its history, its sacred points. This secret knowledge is a source of power. It creates a community of shared understanding that excludes the colonizers. This spiritual stain also serves as a form of quiet, passive resistance. While open rebellion is suicidal, these small acts of honoring the old ways are a way of asserting that the German worldview is not the only one, and perhaps not the true one. Leaving an offering at a sacred tree is a way of saying, you may own this land according to your paper laws, but you do not understand it, and we are still loyal to its true masters. It's a way of maintaining a cultural identity and a sense of dignity in the face of overwhelming force. The Germans can stain the workers' hands and clothes, they can stain the silence with their machines, and they can stain their futures with the ink of the ledger, but they cannot seem to wash away this deeper, more ancient stain of belief. It is a quiet, resilient force, a spiritual undercurrent that flows beneath the neatly ordered terraces of the coffee plantation, particularly for the women, whose hands are stained by more than just the harvest. In the official narrative of the plantation, the image of the laborer is often male. The glamorous illusion is one of strong men felling trees, tilling the earth, and hauling heavy sacks. It's a narrative that aligns with the colonial ideal of masculine strength taming a wild frontier. Women are present in this fantasy, but they are relegated to the background, perhaps in domestic roles, supporting the male workforce. The primary physical labor, the engine of the plantation, is implicitly presented as a man's world. Erskmit's reports might praise the strength and stamina of his male workers, framing the entire enterprise as a project of rugged, masculine endeavor. This vision is a comforting lie. The shocking reality is that women are not only present in the fields, they are a critical, and often majority, component of the workforce. And their burden is double. You see this truth every single day. Women are beside you in the coffee groves, their fingers just as nimble, their baskets just as heavy. Their hands bear the same dark brown stain from the coffee cherries. They are on the drying patios, raking the beans under the hot sun. They are at the pounding mortars, their arms and shoulders developing the same sinewy strength as the men's from the repetitive, percussive work. They perform the same grueling, 10-hour days of plantation labor. The coffee stain is their uniform, too. But for the women, that is only the first stain. When the horn sounds to end the workday, a man's labor is largely done. He can trudge back to the barracks, collect his food ration, and collapse onto his sleeping mat. A woman's work has just entered its second phase. You watch as they leave the fields and immediately turn to other tasks. They are the ones responsible for walking, sometimes for miles, to fetch the day's water for drinking and cooking. They are the ones who must gather firewood. They are the ones who take the raw maize flour ration and begin the long process of grinding it further and cooking it over an open fire into the thick porridge that is the evening meal for themselves and their men. Their hands, already stained black-brown from the coffee pulp, now become coated in another layer of grime. They are dusted with the white of maize flour, streaked with the black of soot from the cooking pots, and ingrained with the grey of ash from the fire. Their hands tell a story of a double burden. One stain from the cash crop of the colonial master, the other from the subsistence work of feeding the family. One stain is for the profit of a distant empire, the other is for the immediate survival of her own people. The why of this brutal disparity is rooted in a convergence of two patriarchal systems. The German colonial administration brought with it its own European notions of a gendered division of labor, where women were primarily responsible for domestic duties. Simultaneously, many of the local African societies already had traditions where women were responsible for agriculture, water, and food preparation. The plantation system didn't challenge these structures, it exploited them. It took the traditional female responsibility for farming and applied it to the coffee fields, while simultaneously taking for granted that women would continue to perform all their traditional domestic labors on top of the new plantation work. The Herskmit. This is a marvel of efficiency. He gets a laborer who works a full day in his fields and who then, at no extra cost to him, feeds and sustains another laborer, her husband, or male relative. He is essentially getting two spheres of labor: the public, cash crop labor, and the private, subsistence labor for the price of one meager ration. It is a system of exploitation squared. The women are the ultimate shock absorbers of the plantation economy, their bodies and their time stretched to cover the work of both worlds. The doubly stained hand of the woman is the most potent symbol of this reality. It represents the intersection of colonial economic exploitation and entrenched patriarchal expectation. Her exhaustion is deeper, her day is longer, her work is never truly done. The man's stain represents his role as a laborer in the colonial machine. The woman's two stains represent her role as the machine's foundational, most over-awkward, and least acknowledged gear. She is the engine that drives the engine. And just as this reality is hidden in the plantation's daily life, a new piece of German engineering arrives, promising to make life easier, but destined to do just the opposite. A new machine arrives. It comes in massive wooden crates, hauled up the mountain on wagons by teams of sweating, straining oxen, and its arrival is an event. Herskmit presides over its unpacking like a priest revealing a holy relic. This is the glamorous illusion of technological salvation. The machine is a brand new, top-of-the-line coffee pulper, imported directly from a factory in Hamburg, Germany. It is a thing of industrial beauty, made of heavy cast iron, painted a bold, cheerful green, with gleaming brass fittings and a large, spoked flywheel. It is the embodiment of European ingenuity and progress. Herskmit gathers the workers and gives a speech, translated by his overseer. He explains that this machine will make the work easier. It is far more efficient than the small, hand-cranked pulpers you have been using. Its gears and rollers are designed to pulp the coffee cherries faster and cleaner than ever before. He presents it as a gift, a sign of his investment in the plantation and his concern for the welfare of his workers. The promise is a lighter workload and greater productivity, a win-win for everyone. You look at the massive, gleaming machine, and a part of you feels a flicker of hope. Perhaps this iron giant will finally ease the back-breaking nature of the work. It looks powerful, efficient, and clear, in a stark contrast to the messy, manual labor you perform every day. The machine is installed, and the first day of its operation begins. The shocking reality is that this machine is not a savior. It is a tyrant. It does not make the work easier. It makes it more intense. The old hand-cranked pulpers had a natural, human-scaled rhythm. They could only be fed so fast. The pace of the work was limited by the strength of the person turning the crank. But this new German beast is insatiable. Its large flywheel, once set in motion by a team of 4 strong men, has a powerful momentum. It demands to be fed constantly, at a speed that is 3 or 4 times faster than the old method. Your job is no longer to pulp. Your job is to serve the machine. A line of workers is organized to bring baskets of cherries from the groves at a frantic pace. Another team is dedicated solely to dumping these baskets into the machine's wide, hungry maw. The machine doesn't get tired. It doesn't need to rest. It sets a relentless, mechanical pace, and you are forced to keep up with it. The work becomes a frantic scramble. Baskets are dropped, cherries are spilled. The noise is immense, a constant, deafening clatter of gears and grinding. The spray of pulp and juice is thicker than ever, drenching the workers who stand nearest to it. By the end of the day, you are more exhausted than you have ever been. You have not been liberated by the machine. You have been enslaved to its rhythm. The stain on your tunic is deeper. The ache in your back is sharper. The why of this cruel paradox is central to the logic of industrial capitalism, whether in a European factory or a colonial plantation. The purpose of a machine is not to make the worker's life easier. It is to increase the rate of production and, therefore, profit. The machine's efficiency is measured in output per hour, not in human well-being. Erskmid's investment in this expensive piece of equipment must be justified by a massive increase in the amount of coffee processed each day. To achieve this, the human components of the system must be pushed to match the machine's potential. The machine's true function is to intensify labor. It skills the workforce, transforming a task that required some level of knack and rhythm hand pulping into a monotonous, repetitive chore of feeding a machine. It also creates a more dangerous work environment. The massive flywheel and powerful gears are unforgiving. A moment of inattention, a hand getting too close, could lead to a catastrophic injury. But from the perspective of the ledger book on the veranda, the machine is a spectacular success. The daily processing figures have tripled. The plantation is more profitable than ever. The human costs, deeper fatigue, the increased risk, the complete subjugation to a mechanical pace is not a variable in this equation. The gleaming green machine, which promised to bring a piece of modern, enlightened Germany to the highlands of Africa, has in reality only perfected the system of extraction. It has deepened the workers' entrapment, making them cogs in a louder, faster, more demanding version of the same old grind. It has stained their lives with a new layer of mechanical fatigue. And as you watch it churn through mountains of red cherries, producing the clean beans that are the source of all this toil, you can't help but wonder what this stuff even tastes like, this bitter luxury that is the entire purpose of your world, but is never meant for you. The entire plantation revolves around a single, ultimate purpose, the flavor of the coffee bean. This is the distant, almost mythical destination of all your labor. The glamorous illusion, spun in the drawing rooms and cafes of Europe, is of a sublime sensory experience. Coffee is not just a drink. It's a ritual. It's the aroma of intellectual debate, the taste of sophisticated leisure, the warm comfort on a cold morning. The marketing of the time would have described it in poetic terms: a robust body, a wine-like acidity, a hint of fruit and spice. This little bean is sold as a package of pure pleasure, a small, affordable luxury that connects the consumer to a world of exotic, sun-drenched landscapes. The drinker in Berlin or London is invited to savor the taste of this far-off paradise, a clean, perfect, and delicious experience delivered in a porcelain cup. You are at the very heart of creating this luxury, yet you are completely excluded from it. The shocking reality is that you, the coffee worker, may live your entire life surrounded by coffee, from blossom to bean, and never once taste it as it is intended to be enjoyed. The roasted coffee bean is a forbidden fruit. Every single bean is counted, weighed, and bagged for export. They are the property of Erskmid, as valuable as currency. To be caught taking any for your own use would be considered a serious crime theft. The overseers watch with eagle eyes as the final, dried green beans are funneled into burlap sacks, sewn shut and stamped with the plantation's mark. But human curiosity is a powerful force. And in a world of such monotony and deprivation, a small, secret act of defiance can feel like a feast. The opportunity comes at the very last stage of the process on the plantation. Before being bagged, a small sample of the beans is sometimes roasted on site to test the quality of the batch. This is done in a small pan over an open fire, a process reserved for the overseer or the bwana himself. The smell is intoxicating, completely different from the sharp, acidic smell of the wet processing. This is the rich, warm, nutty aroma that the world associates with coffee. It is the smell of the finished product, the smell of money. One evening, you find a few beans that have been accidentally dropped and overlooked near the roasting fire. They are dark, oily, and still slightly warm. Your heart pounds. You look around. No one is watching. With a quick, furtive movement, you scoop them up and hide them in a small fold of your tunic. Later, in the darkness of the barracks, you take one out. It's hard as a pebble. You put it in your mouth. You don't have a grinder. You don't have a coffee pot or hot water. You can only chew it. It's an intense, overwhelming experience. The taste is nothing like the sweet smell. It is incredibly, shockingly bitter. It's a bitterness that coats your entire tongue, a deep, earthy, almost medicinal flavor. It tastes of smoke from the roasting fire, of burnt sugars, and something else you can't quite place, the taste of pure, concentrated toil. It's not pleasant. It's not the sublime luxury from the fantasy. It is harsh, raw, and powerful. It's the taste of the medicine, not the handy. As you chew the hard bean, it fractures into a gritty powder in your mouth. It's a stolen taste, a secret communion with the thing you spend your life creating. The why of this prohibition is simple and absolute. You are a producer, not a consumer. In the economic logic of the plantation, your role is to create value, not to enjoy it. Allowing the workforce to consume the product would be, from the owner's perspective, pure loss. It would be like letting the workers in a mint take home the coins they press. The entire system is built on the premise that the product flows in one direction only, from the colony to the metropole, from the producer to the consumer, from the stained hand to the clean cup. Your secret, bitter taste of that roasted bean is a profound act of transgression. It momentarily collapses that vast distance. For a second, you are not just a laborer, you are a consumer, tasting the fruit of your own work. The bitterness on your tongue is the real taste of coffee, stripped of the sugar, cream, and fantasy that make it palatable to the European consumer. You are tasting the thing itself, in its most unadulterated form. It is a taste of stolen knowledge. You now know something that the lady in the Viennese cafe will never know. You know the true, unmasked flavor of the bean, and it is the flavor of the dark, rich earth, the smoky fire, and the bitter, unending work. This small act of tasting is a personal rebellion, a way to stain the master's perfect narrative of one-way profit with your own experience. It is one of many small acts that quietly defy the totalizing control of the plantation. The power structure of the plantation is designed to appear absolute. This is the glamorous illusion of total control. Herskmit is the undisputed king of his domain. He has his overseers, his ledger books, his machines, and, if needed, the backing of the German colonial police. The entire system is built to crush dissent. The fences, the work, rhythms, the dependency on rations, the crushing debt, it all creates an environment where open rebellion seems not just foolish, but impossible. The narrative projected is one of a compliant, orderly workforce, managed with firm but fair German efficiency. Any disruption is unthinkable. The plantation is a perfect machine and the workers are its well-oiled, interchangeable parts. This image of perfect, frictionless control is a fragile fantasy. The shocking reality is that the machine is constantly being sabotaged, not with grand gestures, but with 1,000 tiny, almost invisible acts of defiance. Resistance is not a single, heroic act of revolt. It is a constant, low-grade infection within the system. It is a form of friction, a quiet refusal to be a perfectly efficient cog. You learn to see it, and you learn to practice it. It starts with the pace of work. The machine demands speed, the overseer shouts for haste, but a basket can be lifted just a little more slowly. Coffee cherries can be picked with a deliberateness that borders on slowness, your eyes scanning for the perfect red cherry with an exaggerated care that eats up precious seconds. When raking the beans on the drying patio, your movements can become fluid and languid, almost like a dance, beautiful to watch but maddeningly inefficient. These are slowdowns that are so subtle they are difficult to punish. Are you being deliberately slow, or are you just tired? Are you being defiant, or are you just being careful? It's a grey area, a space where you can reclaim a few moments of your time, a few ounces of your energy. Then there is the tool. A hoe blade can be angled just so, to strike a rock hidden in the soil, blunting its edge and requiring a trip to the smithy for repair. A handle on a pulping machine, if not gripped firmly, can crack. These are always accidents, of course. The work is hard. The tools are old. Who can be blamed? But these accidents create pauses in the workflow. They disrupt the relentless rhythm. They cost the plantation time and money, small, almost unnoticeable leaks in the vessel of profit. The most powerful form of this secret rebellion is the song. The overseers discourage talking, but they cannot always stop the singing. It starts with one voice, a low hum, and is soon picked up by others. The songs are not German work songs. They are traditional songs, sung in your own language. The melodies are beautiful, haunting, and to the European ear, they are just exotic, primitive music. But they are encoded with meaning. A song might tell a story about a clever rabbit outwitting a powerful hyena. Story everyone understands is not about animals. Another song might use intricate poetic language to complain about the poor quality of the food, or the pain in a worker's back, or the arrogance of the overseer who is standing right there, listening with a smile, oblivious to the fact that he is being insulted. The songs create a bubble of shared culture and secret communication, a space that the Bwana cannot enter. They stain his narrative of quiet compliance with a soundtrack of hidden defiance. The why for this form of resistance, what the historian James C. Scott famously called weapons of the weakest survival and the preservation of dignity. When open confrontation means certain punishment, perhaps a flogging or dismissal, resistance must become covert. It is a way of fighting back without fighting. These small acts, foot-dragging, feigned ignorance, petty sabotage, and coded language are the everyday arsenal of the powerless. They may not overthrow the system, but they make it less efficient, less profitable, and less dehumanizing. Each act is a way of asserting your humanity against a system that seeks to reduce you to a number in a ledger. By deliberately working slowly, you are saying, "My time is my own." By accidentally breaking a tool, you are asserting a small measure of control over the means of production. By singing a subversive song, you are reclaiming your voice and your culture. These acts are not revolutionary, but they are profoundly human. They are a way to stain the master's perfect, clean narrative of total control with the messy, unpredictable, and resilient reality of the human spirit. And as the bags of clean, green beans are finally sewn shut, ready for their long journey, you know they carry with them the invisible weight of this quiet struggle, a story that will be completely erased by the time they reach their destination. The day finally comes when the last of the season's harvest is ready. You watch as the final bags are filled. These are not the rough, open baskets you use in the fields. These are sturdy, tightly woven burlap sacks, made for a long ocean voyage. The green, dried, hulled coffee beans know small, pale, and almost stone-like are poured in. The sound is like gravel filling a hole. This is the glamorous illusion of the final product, ready for the global market. Each bag is weighed on a large scale, the number called out and recorded in that same final ledger. The mouth of the sack is folded over and stitched shut with a thick needle and heavy twine. Finally, a stencil and black ink are used to mark the bag, a crest, the plantation's name, and the words Usambara Mountains Coffee, German East Africa. The bag is now sealed. It has become a neat, transportable, anonymous unit of commerce. It looks clean, professional, and important. A long train of wagons, pulled by oxen, is loaded with these sacks. You and the other workers stand back and watch as the convoy begins its slow, creaking journey down the mountain path. The wagons will travel to the coast, to the port of Tanga. There, the sacks will be loaded into the dark, cavernous hold of a steamship bound for Hamburg. The product is on its way. Its journey is one of increasing cleanliness and abstraction. From a wet, sticky fruit on a bush, to a washed bean on a patio, to a sterile commodity in a sealed bag, it is systematically distanced from its origin. The shocking reality is that this journey is a great laundering of history. The moment that bag was sewn shut, you were sealed out of its story. The purpose of the journey is not just to move the coffee from one continent to another, it is to wash away every trace of the world that created it. Imagine the sack's arrival in Hamburg. It is unloaded from the ship onto a clean dock by German workers. It is transported to a warehouse, its stencil marking it as a high-quality colonial good. From there, it goes to a roaster, a specialist in a clean apron who will heat the beans, unlocking their aroma and flavor. Finally, a portion of these beans ends up in a fine shop in a bustling Berlin street. The shop has polished wooden floors, glass jars, and brass scoops. The air smells rich and inviting. A well-dressed woman with clean, gloved hands points to the beans, now roasted to a perfect, gleaming chestnut brown. Shopkeeper weighs them out on a delicate scale, pouring them into a crisp paper bag. He tells her, "An excellent choice, madam. The finest mountain-grown coffee from our African territories. Very aromatic. In that clean, civilized transaction, the erasure is complete. The stain is gone." The woman buying the coffee does not know about your hands, stained black-brown and cracked with painful fissures. She does not know about the dust cough that rattles in your chest at night. She does not know about the overseer's shout or the relentless, mind-numbing rhythm of the pounding pestles. She does not know about the ledger book that holds you in bondage, or the woman who must cook for her family after a 10-hour day in the fields. She does not know about the secret songs of resistance, the taste of a stolen, bitter bean, or the sacred groves that were cleared to plant the shrubs. The why of this total amnesia is the fundamental magic trick of global commerce. A product like coffee is sold on an illusion, an exotic fantasy. The consumer is buying a feeling, a story, a small piece of a distant and romantic world. To know the true story of coercion, pain, and filth would be to contaminate that fantasy. It would spoil the taste. The suffering of the producer is an externality that the market must erase to function smoothly. The branding, the packaging, the very act of placing it on a clean shelf in a European shop, are all part of a deliberate process of historical cleansing. The burlap sack is a border wall. On one side is the messy, complicated, human reality of production. On the other side is the clean, simple, desirable reality of consumption. The journey across the ocean is a baptism that washes the bean of its sins, allowing it to be born again, pure and blameless, in the marketplace. The story of the coffee bean is not your story. It is a story that begins the moment it leaves your world. The product has been successfully purified, its past forgotten. But as you stand on the now quiet plantation, the wagons gone, the air still thick with the memory of dust, you understand a deeper truth. The journey may wash the stain from the bean's story, but the stain it has left on you, on this land, and on the lives of the people here, that is a different matter entirely. That is a stain the ocean cannot wash away. Years pass. Decades. The world churns with wars and the fall of empires. The German colonial administration is replaced by the British. Eventually, after more struggle, the nation of Tanzania is born. You are an old person now, or perhaps you are the grandchild of that first worker we met. You stand on the same land, looking out over the Usambara Mountains. The glamorous illusion now is one of post-colonial freedom and the healing of time. The most obvious symbols of the old oppression are gone. Her Schmidt's plantation has been broken up. The land is now a patchwork of small holdings, owned by local Shamba farmers. They grow coffee, yes, but they also grow maize, beans and bananas for themselves. The big German pulping machine is a rust-eaten hulk, half swallowed by vines. The pounding rhythm of the pestles is gone, replaced by the hum of small, cooperative-owned hulling machines in the local village. Children laugh as they run down paths where workers once trudged in exhausted silence. People wear what they wish, not a mandated uniform of stained calico. There is a school, a clinic. The ledger book that held generations in debt is gone, a relic of a buried past. The land looks peaceful, returned to its people. It seems the stain has finally faded, washed away by the rains of time and the winds of change. History has moved on, and the wounds have healed. This is the comforting narrative, the story of a happy ending. But the shocking reality is that the stain is not gone. It has simply changed its form. It is no longer a visible dye on the skin, but an invisible residue that has soaked deep into the soil and the soul of this place. The stain that never fades is the legacy of the system itself. You see it in the land. The neat terraces, carved into the hillsides for the German coffee shrubs, are still there. But the intensive, single-crop agriculture of the plantation era stripped the soil of its nutrients. The earth is tired. The yields are not what they once were. The old, diverse ecosystem that supported the Usambara for centuries was permanently altered, and the land is still recovering. The coffee shrubs themselves, descendants of the original German stock, are still here, but they are vulnerable to diseases that thrive in monocultures. You see the stain in the economy. The entire region was re-engineered for a single purpose: to produce a cash crop for a foreign market. The old systems of subsistence and local exchange were broken. Now, the livelihood of every small farmer is still tied to the fluctuating price of coffee on the world market in New York and London, a price they have no control over. They are no longer in debt to Herr Schmidt's ledger, but they are in a new kind of debt to the unpredictable whims of global capitalism. They are free, but they are still trapped in an economic structure that was built during the colonial era for the benefit of others. The ghost of the plantation's logic remains. And you see the deepest stain in the people. You see it in the memory of the elders, in the stories they tell of the German times. You see it in the way land is now viewed, not just as a sacred, ancestral trust, but as a commodity to be bought and sold. The colonial era introduced a way of thinking that has been hard to unlearn. The dust cough might be gone, but there are new sicknesses, new challenges. The fundamental inequality, the fact that the person who grows the coffee earns a tiny fraction of what the person who drinks it pays, has not changed. The stain is the persistent, structural echo of an old injustice, a pattern of extraction that has proven incredibly difficult to erase. The coffee you grow is still a luxury for others, paid for by your precarious existence. The clean cup in a distant city is still being filled by the sweat of the Usambara highlands. The why for the persistence of this stain is that history is not a slate that can be wiped clean. The economic, agricultural, and social structures created by colonialism were foundational. They set a path. The infrastructure, the roads, the ports, the very choice of what crop to grow was all designed to serve an extractive purpose. Dismantling that system is not as simple as changing the flag. The new nations inherited the architecture of their own exploitation. The stain remains, because the world it created remains, in subtle but powerful ways. It is a legacy written into the very soil, a quiet reminder that the past is never truly past. It is a permanent mark on the land and on the people, a story that does not end, but simply finds new ways to be told. And now, my dear friend, as our story comes to a close, let the echoes of that world begin to soften. The thumping of the pestles fades into the distance, becoming just a soft, rhythmic pulse, like a slow and steady heartbeat. The sharp, bitter taste of that stolen bean dissolves, leaving only a quiet memory on the edge of your senses. The harshness of the sun on the drying pechos melts away, replaced by the gentle, cool weight of your own blankets. The world of the plantation, with its injustices and its secret acts of defiance, can now recede, its sharp edges blurring as you drift towards a much softer, kinder place. Let go of the stained hands, the tired backs, the dust-filled lungs. Let the image of the clean white suit of the master dissolve into nothingness, and let the vibrant colours of the secret songs of the workers be the last thing that lingers in your mind, a quiet testament to a resilience that could never be fully extinguished. There is no more work to be done. No horn to wake you, no ledger to bind you. There is only the stillness of your room, the gentle rise and fall of your own breathing, and the deep, restorative peace of the approaching night. You are safe, you are comfortable, and you are free to let go completely. Rest now. End of script. Sweet dreams.